Hi, I'm Bernie Flynn. At New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Company, we believe that all citizens need to be informed about the important issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by CAUCUS Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, New Jersey Resources, NJM, Auto Insurance, Homeowners Insurance, and more, with a focus on safety and financial stability. International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825. The Northeast Regional Council of Carpenters. TD Bank. And by MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by Commerce Magazine. And by Jaffe Communications, where business, media, and government converge in New Jersey.
State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato, coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio in Newark. It is our pleasure to welcome State Senator Raymond J. Lesniak, candidate for governor of the great state of New Jersey. Good to see you, Senator.
Nice to be here.
How many years have you been in the state legislature?
40. This is my 40th year.
All right, so you said, I am not running.
It's time to move up or move out. I plan on moving up.
You're moving up?
Moving up.
Because?
Because the state needs leadership that is not existing either now or I see with the other Democratic candidates. So I want to make a difference.
Okay.
I've sponsored the most powerful environmental protection laws in the country, prison, civil justice and criminal justice reform, LGBT rights, animal welfare. I've been a champion on these issues. New Jersey needs that type of leadership. It's got problems.
So, speaking of problems, let's start with the state pension crisis. By the way, is it a crisis?
It is a crisis. Sure it is.
Define the crisis.
How about $150 billion between the pension and the health care in not being there?
Well, you mean, let's be clear. You mean for state employees who will be retiring and they expect those pension benefits to be there for them, their health benefits to be there for them, may not be there?
Well, in about 20 or 30 years, they may not be.
What?
That's a problem if we don't adequately start funding them now. I mean, it's kind of like climate change. We have to start now, or else decades later, there's going to be, we won't be able to catch up.
But, Senator, respectfully, there are those who have come in here to say it has been Democrats and Republicans as governor, together with the legislature, as governors, together with the legislature, who have not adequately funded on the state end, right, their fair share. What would you say to those who say, you know what? Ray Lesniak, Senator Lesniak's been a leader in so many areas. What has the senator done to make sure the state has put in their fair share so the pension wouldn't be in crisis today?
And that's why I'm running for governor. But by the way, I did have a proposal 10 years ago to put $6 to $8 billion in the pension fund.
In one fiscal year?
Yes.
When the budget, well, now it's $35 billion, the state budget. What could it have been then?
That would have solved the problem.
At the time?
That would have, because it would have grown over years. But the bottom line is, though, our government needs to be restructured and reformed.
Define that.
We have to do things like have a controller of education. There's $1 billion, I've identified it, wasted in government, in education, that never gets to the classroom. Never gets to the classroom.
Well, what's wrong with having a head of the Department of Education? What would be the difference between that person
because I've seen
and a controller of education?
I'll tell you why, because they cover up, I'm sorry, but they cover up for each other. Yes, money goes into the, complaints go to the Office of Fiscal Affairs.
In the Department of Education.
In the Department of Education, and it gets into a black hole because it's a bureaucracy that takes care of each other. We need outsiders to overlook that spending. We need that in every aspect of government. How about the Port Authority? You know how much money gets wasted in the Port Authority? I would put commuters members of recommended by the AAA. New Jersey Transit, same thing. How about the parole board? We have a political patronage system there. They get $120,000 a year, health benefits, pension benefits, when retired judges can do it for $300 a day.
Well, go back again.
By the way, these are things that a legislator can't do. Only a governor can restructure and reform government.
Respectfully, Senator, if you were governor, would you say, you know what? Yeah. I would propose raising taxes on wealthier New Jerseyans.
I already support the millionaires tax.
I would raise taxes. I would propose raising taxes on millionaires and have that money, as much as possible, go directly into funding the pension crisis, right?
I already have legislation to do that.
But, Senator, even if a significant percentage of those millionaires said, I'm out of New Jersey, it's an overtaxed state, I'm going to Florida, I'm going somewhere else, you'd say? I'm
saying that's not true. It doesn't happen. We have lower, we would have, even with the millionaires tax, we had it. We had it on the previous governors, but it expired. Nobody was leaving. They left because, if they would leave because of the estate tax, but we did away with that, okay? So that's not going to be a key factor.
You don't think it matters whether we increase taxes on wealthier New Jerseyans?
I do not at all. They did it in California, and their economy is booming. Same thing with New York. They've done it.
Let me ask you this.
By the way, also corporations. We have loopholes that 40...
Hit them even harder?
Wait, we have loopholes. We have loopholes that 40 other states have closed. 40. They can't go anywhere because 40 other states have it. That's another $200–300 million.
Real quick, before I get off the pension issue.
Wait, don't forget Exxon, my suit to overturn the Exxon case.
Yeah, we do.
That's
remember that.
$2 billion
Rafael Piromano and I on Capitol Report did have you talk about that. You were one of the first people to lead that effort. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Would you, as governor, in any way have a renegotiation with public employees as to what their relationship is with the state and whether health care benefits and pension benefits should be renegotiated for newer employees? Would you do that?
Absolutely.
You would?
Of course I would. And not only for newer employees. Hold on. It can be renegotiated if you make the payments that are necessary.
You mean the state makes the payments?
The state makes the payments to have the pension secure, okay? And then you can sit down and negotiate it. And I believe they will negotiate it.
Only if the state does their part.
Only if the state does their part.
You know taxes, school funding better than most.
Yes.
What do you think of the idea? What do you say to those who say, you know what, there are a whole range of school systems that are not getting the state funding that they should be getting under the current law for school funding, and that we really need to take a hard look at this because those school districts that are not getting that funding are having to raise property taxes, and those people can't even afford their homes anymore. You say, Senator?
I say they're right. And they're particularly right in areas of low-income families. The most important time in a child's ability to learn is from prenatal to 3. And we don't do any help there. Okay, we should have these wraparound neighborhood schools that provide services for those families so those kids, when they get to school, have an ability to learn. Nobody's doing anything about that. I would do that.
Well, you're talking about urban areas.
Yes.
But I'm talking about beyond that, because those are some of the Abbott districts and some other urban areas. What about the Jersey cities and the Hobokens, who some people say, you know what? Their economy's booming. Real estate's booming there. Property values are high. And they don't need that state aid that they're getting. They should cut back some of that and send it to some suburban areas that are really struggling. You say?
Well, what I say is that they should not be held harmless because they're getting more money than they particularly need. And I'd go in and audit them. And I'd show them that they could save money and not lose one dime in terms of efficiency.
But you would not take money away from those school districts?
I'd show them where they're wasting money and take that money away. Yes, absolutely.
Affordable Care
Absolutely.
Act. Affordable Care Act. Republican members of Congress, many of them, and President Trump, repeal and replace. We don't know what they're going to talk about replacing it with as we do this program early in March 2017. What are your concerns about New Jersey residents who have benefited? Many say they've benefited from the Affordable Care Act, but other businesses have said they've been hurt by the Affordable Care Act.
Well, overall, we have hundreds of thousands of people who rely on it. Without it, our charity care would go through the roof.
Charity care
go through the roof.
Make it clear to folks.
Sure.
Charity care. If someone goes into the emergency room, you must be treated by law.
Well, of course. You don't want to turn them away.
Right. So that's state funding for hospitals who treat those people.
Yes.
And so what's your concern here? So we explain.
My concern is if they're not these folks now no longer have coverage if the Affordable Care Act goes away. They're going to be going to the hospitals, and they're not going to be able to get treated because there's not enough money to treat them. We would have. Let's hope and pray that they don't abolish the Affordable Care Act.
Can we play a word association, Senator? I say, President Donald Trump. You say,
dangerous. Dangerous. Hopefully he'll change, but he is instilling fear in people. Throughout the world, other countries, NATO countries are concerned about my Muslim brothers and sisters in my neighborhood. I live in that neighborhood. They're fearful of his policies and his rhetoric. They're being attacked themselves.
what could it mean in New Jersey, per se?
In New Jersey, we have a large immigrant population. What we don't want is them to go on the ground so that when crimes are committed, they're not reported, they're not witnessed, if they fear that they're going to come forward and then be deported. So we need a path for legalization for those citizens. And instead of fearful, look at Elizabeth downtown. It's booming. It's booming because of the immigrant population.
Leadership. Number one lesson, you're 40 years in the state legislature. And by the way, I should disclose that in a different life, in the mid-1980s,
You chose wisely.
No, I didn't. No. Hey, Ray.
People chose for you.
Yeah, that's a little inside. I lost my seat, and I was elected to the state legislature as a very young man.
Yes.
Actually took over. You were the leader in the state legislature in the assembly, in the environment end, and I wound up doing some environmental issues, and I lost my seat soon thereafter. And you said, don't come back, go find another career. And this is where I am, but that's not the issue. The question is this. While I happen to have served with you in the legislature for a short time, I'm going to ask you this. After 40 years, the number one lesson you've learned about leadership that you would take into the governorship is?
Relationships. Relationships. We had a close relationship.
Sure did.
When I needed your vote, I got it. More so on the issue. The issue was important, but maybe you're iffy on something, but if you have a relationship, hey, I need you. Come on, we're buddies, we're friends. Relationships count, and that's why my experience is going to count.
So why does compromise get such a bad name for so many people? Why is that?
Because sometimes compromise can be bad. I'll give you a good example.
Real quick.
I talked about the parole board, okay? When they put their buddies on a parole board, unqualified, that's a part of compromise dealing that doesn't work, that's bad. But good compromises like the relationship I have with Tom Kaine and John Brandig.
Yes. State Senator Ray Lesniak, 40 years in the New Jersey State Legislature, a few in the Assembly, most in the Senate, the upper house. For those of us who were in the lower house, believe me, we knew the difference. Thank you. Appreciate it, Senator.
My pleasure.
Wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me.
Folks, stay with us on State of Affairs. We'll be right back right after this. New Jersey voters will soon decide who will be New Jersey's next governor after Chris Christie. Now, my job is to ask the candidates the tough questions that you want answered. So follow me on Twitter @SteveAdebato and post the number one question that you want me to ask New Jersey's next governor. We are pleased to welcome Jeanette Hoffman, who is a Republican strategist in the great state of New Jersey, and Phil Alagia, Chief of Staff, Essex County Government, and also a Democratic strategist. Welcome to State of Affairs. You like our new set?
It's beautiful. I love it.
Congratulations on a new show.
Thanks to our partners here at NJTV in Newark. Let me ask you, we've been talking to all these candidates running for governor in New Jersey in 2017, take over in 2018. Let me ask you, if you were to say the three issues that this race for governor post-Chris Christie will turn on, what would you say they are?
Absolutely affordability and the economy, property taxes, and schools. To me, those are the big three. I think New Jersey has been having a tough time grappling with those issues. Year after year, we have property taxes that keep skyrocketing. We have a gas tax that's making our state more expensive. I think the people of New Jersey want to hear how these candidates are going to address these issues.
But take a step back. Phil, how does a candidate talk about property taxes, right? As opposed to saying, say a candidate says, I'm going to lower your property taxes. Wait,
doesn't everyone say that? Everyone says they're going to lower them. And they go up every year.
Devil's advocate, is it not the mayor's job, the city council's job, to make decisions about what the property tax levy should be in a community. And what does the governor have to do with that?
You know, there's the tax rebates that the state sends out. Is it a gimmicky thing to try to give some property tax relief to people? But you're right. Your property taxes are made up a small portion by county government, a small portion by municipal government.
What's the biggest piece?
Board of Education.
Yeah.
You run your school system, 60 to 70% of your budget.
So say someone says, they're running for governor, I am going to massively increase. I'm running for governor, and I'm going to spend more money. Imagine this candidate runs for governor. Phil, both of you advise candidates who run for major office, right? You know every level of government. Candidate says, I'm going to run for office, and I'm going to say, I'm going to spend more state money of your dollars, tax dollars, on public education than ever before. Winning campaign, Phil?
I don't think anyone wants to hear about more expenses. People want to hear do more with less, and let's, cut corners, and let's bring the cost down.
But isn't it that state aid to local government for schools that could potentially keep your property taxes down?
Well, right. I think that is a huge issue in New Jersey, and one we haven't been able to tackle for decades, because the way the school funding formula works, there are haves and have-nots. Some districts get funded very, very well by the state, and others get nothing. So they rely on taxpayers to make up the difference. And also because we have almost 600 municipalities and school districts in New Jersey. That's a lot. We have a lot of small little governments out there. So conceivably, if these towns keep running these small little governments, your tax dollars are going to go up, rather than if they regionalize and merge some of their essential services, you can see more shared savings there.
But no one wants to give up control. Every little town wants to name their principal. Everyone wants to name their police chief. Everyone wants to, it's my little school. And the funny thing is, if you go to a town like Montclair,
don't you dare say that. See, Phil has to go to my town. Don't you dare say. Go ahead, say Montclair. Go ahead.
But when you talk to some people, they're like, we don't mind paying more property taxes if it means a better school, or if I can keep my principal, or I can keep, for some.
If I can keep my. But Phil, play this out for a second. If you're going to truly play the game, what do most people want? Is it part of the problem? I don't want to get philosophical. I want to be very practical here. If we're talking about the state of affairs of the fiscal reality of New Jersey, or what's the fiscal state of affairs of New Jersey, isn't part of the problem that what people want, in part, is driving up the cost and the fiscal problems in New Jersey? Because what they want is their own school district, their own chief of police, their own fire department, and for a community that's that small, it's not efficient enough, and you shouldn't have your own fire department. You shouldn't have your own chief of police. You shouldn't have your own school district, because there's a bureaucracy that goes along with that, right? So why can't a politician run and say, you want the truth? You can't handle the truth, and I'm going to tell you.
That's true, and I think you're going to see a lot of hard decisions need to be made. I think, look, Governor Whitman's been talking about regionalizing school districts since the 90s. Has it happened? No, because of a lot of the political pressure. So I think if any candidate wants to be honest with the people of New Jersey,
honest, what would he or she do?
He or she's going to say, look, if you want local control, if you want small government, it's going to cost you more. Here are ways that we can regionalize services. You can still have the services you need and still have it be somewhat small and local. Like the Princetons, they just regionalized Princeton Borough and Princeton Township. That's a perfect example. Is it a huge, massive government? No, there's still local government. They're still close to the people. It can be done.
You look at Bergen County, and I believe there's a
70 communities.
They have more pieces of fire apparatus than the New York City Fire Department. Because every little town has a fire truck, a fire engine, a car for the chief, this, that. And if you add them all up, there's actually more pieces of equipment in North Jersey for a much smaller population.
By the way, Essex County only 22. There's 22 communities.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that.
22.
I knew you weren't going to talk about
Essex. But there's some small communities in Essex County and West Essex that, we share a regional school system, and it's efficient. But we have a grammar in Fairfield, where I live, which I love, and it's a great town. We have a grammar school that's part of Fairfield, and we go to regional high school. But we have a superintendent for the grammar school and a superintendent for the high school.
Let's do this. On the pension issue, what would you say to those who say this massive pension crisis, which I've been talking to every candidate running for governor about? By the way, our team's going to put up our Twitter handle and also our Facebook page. We're continuing to get questions from all kinds of really smart, engaged people. I love when people say people don't care about politics. You care about issues, and you care about who's going to be New Jersey's next governor. Log on. We'll take those questions. They've been very helpful. Here's the thing. I love when people say, what do I care about the pension crisis, because it doesn't affect me. I'm not a government employee. But, Philip, it does affect, and I'll come back to you, Jeanette, it does affect every person in the state. How?
Well, because we have, first of all, there's a huge amount of government workers who are dependent on, pension. As you like to say, for full disclosure.
Go ahead.
I work for the County of Essex. I am a member of the New Jersey State Pension System.
You want it to be there for you and your family.
I based my career. I could have gone into the private sector. I've made some decisions that, I've been working in government all my life. But my plan is when I hit a certain age, then I'm going to have a retirement. Now, I'm willing to pay more in my contributions.
You would?
If it's in lieu of not getting a pension at all, in lieu of it going a belly up, because I don't want to add.
Are you afraid of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you afraid of the pension system going belly up?
I'm at an age now where it's hard for me to get a new career. I mean, it's a big part of, certainly the private sector probably pays more than the government sector for the stuff that we can do. So we made decisions based on getting a pension. And a lot of government workers, the police, the fire, the teachers, they've all made decisions to go into government work thinking that the pension would be there when they retire. We have to make sure it's there.
Make the case.
But what about the rest of us, right? I mean, the pension
system. You mean non-government?
Non-government
Those of us who do
employees.
not work for the public sector,
right,
Phil.
exactly.
Go ahead.
The state pension and health benefit system has gotten so big over the past 2 decades, and Republicans and Democrats are guilty of giving a lot away, giving the store away to public employee unions.
Giving the store away?
We're not giving. Look, they made promises they could not keep. We are paying so much for our pension benefits.
That's not the fault of public employees.
No, it's not. But if they want to make sure that their pension, like Phil wants to make sure that he has a pension, right? We need to make sure that these reforms are there so the fund is solvent. I mean, this is happening all over the country. And taxpayers in New Jersey should care about this issue because when we're laying out a huge chunk of our budget for the pension, we're not addressing schools. We're not addressing health care. That's money that we can't put forward to lowering property taxes because it's already committed to the pension and health benefits fund.
Jeanette, let's clarify this. The budget right now is $35 billion, give or take a few million. So Governor Christie introduces his budget. $2.5 billion or so he's proposing in fiscal year 2018 go directly to a state contribution to the pension crisis. That's a huge chunk, more than most governors, a lot of the last governors, Democrats and Republicans put together. That's way more than most.
And less than the actuaries say he should put in.
Which, by the way, you think is a good thing?
I think that, again, if you have to take it from somewhere else. You have to take it from schools or from health care or from charity care. So there's not enough dollars to go around. But
hold on. Sorry for interrupting, Phil. The more money that comes out of the state or from the state to go into it, it comes from somewhere else.
It has to.
But for those who argue that Chris Christie or other governors haven't done enough, even though, frankly, governor doesn't mean me defending him, he has put in more than most.
More than any other governor.
Well, there's a conundrum here because those are saying, the more you take out, it's not going to health care, it's not going to education. So what's the answer?
Well, I think the answer is we have to reform the system. We can't continue to pay for something that we can't afford. We can't afford these Cadillac benefit health packages. We need to reform it, reform the pension system for people who are coming into the system.
You're saying Phil has a Cadillac he doesn't deserve? I cannot believe you just said that.
I love Phil, and I would never say that about him. But I'm just saying we can't make promises we can't afford to keep.
All right, Phil, stop. We have a smile on your face. I've known you, full disclosure, I've known you long enough to know you have something to say.
I'm not in the private sector with all these perks and being able to go wherever I want.
I pay for my own health insurance.
Government worker, and one
Enough
of the things.
said, Phil. Word association. I've been doing this with everyone who's come into our studio, here at the Agnes Vera studio here at NJTV. Word association. I got to do this with you first.
Uh-oh.
Donald Trump. You don't have that much time to think.
Optimistic. I'm optimistic about Donald Trump.
Are you?
After his recent address to Congress, I think he's presidential. I think he's trying to unite the country, and I think he's tackling big issues.
This show will air a few weeks after that. Some things may happen in between that address to Congress, Phil, and when the show airs. Do you think some tweets or some other things might happen, Phil?
I'm sure they will. The word that comes to my head is disappointment. I'm disappointed when I have to speak to my friends from Europe and they ask me, how did you elect Donald Trump president? And, they say that tourism, foreign tourism, I read a study this morning, is going to go down about 500,000 people, which is revenue to the country because they don't feel welcome by the new Trump administration.
Really?
Yep.
Your response to your friend Phil?
Yeah, listen, I don't agree with everything that the president is doing. I do have some concerns about the travel ban. However, I think if he works with Congress and tackles the big issues like jobs, like our national security, I think we're going to be okay. I think we need to keep our eye on the ball. I think the president needs to keep his eye on the ball and get off the internet and stop tweeting and focus on the
Really?
real
You say
issues.
stop tweeting?
I don't think it's doing the country any service right now.
I'm a fierce, loyal Democrat. But as an American, there's nothing I hope more than he does a phenomenal, great job as president, because that would be good for the country. So far, I don't see it.
You're not. She says optimistic. You say?
I'm not optimistic at all. The country, it seems like
I
we're
see the glass
spread.
half full.
I see it half empty.
That is it. By the way, Jeanette, I want to thank you so much. Phil, thank you so much. That is it for this particular edition of State of Affairs here at NJTV Studios. I'm Steve Adubato. I want to thank you so much for watching.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, New Jersey Resources. NJM, International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, the Northeast Regional Council of Carpenters, TD Bank, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, and by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey.
Together, we're beating cancer. Together, we're unlocking the mysteries of the brain. Together, we're changing the way healthcare is provided, delivered, and imagined. Welcome to RWJ Barnabas Health, New Jersey's most comprehensive healthcare system, with 41,000 medical professionals serving millions of people throughout New Jersey. So when it comes to your health and wellness, you're never alone. RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.